Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijja charana sampanno sugato lokavidu anutaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manusanang buddho bhagava ti swakato bhagavata Dhammo sanditiko, akaliko, ehipasiko, opanayiko, pacchatang veditambo vinyuhi, ti supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho, ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho, nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho, Samici patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho yadidang chattari purisa yugani artha purisa pugala ese bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakhineyo anjali karaniyo anuttarang punyakhetang lokasa Ti evang buddhang sarantanang dhammang sanghang cha bhikkhavo bhayam va chambitattam va lomahamso nahe satiyati. So now slowly this retreat is approaching the end. Now we have, I think, only 3 evenings left. And this retreat has been devoted mostly, I have been trying to explain the practice of the concentration. The practice of the concentration as samadhi. There is a big confusion about this word samadhi. Actually, according to the Theravada way of Abhidharma, this concentration appears in each and every state of the mind. If there is no concentration, the mind disperses on the object, then there is no question of any process of cognition. The process of cognition is possible because the mind remains on the object. So the samadhi has the general application of holding the mind at the object. So the general meaning of samadhi just means the application of the mind to the object without letting the mind disperse. In the tradition of Abhidharma, the samadhi is also explained as the wholesome one-pointedness of the mind. The one-pointedness of the wholesome mind, that is to say. So That means when you practice the different stages of concentration, you should be using a wholesome mind. The wholesome mind is that mind which is freed from ignorance, from greed and from hate. All the unwholesome conditionings of the mind, like pride or wrong view or jealousy or anger, and so on, they are connected with these three roots of unwholesomeness. So the faculty of concentration can be used in wholesome mind, and it can be also used in unwholesome mind. If you have this faculty of concentration that you have developed by the training that you are just now doing, it will give you the possibility of do either very deep good or also very deep bad can be done. Those great evildoers in the history, mostly they had a very good quality of concentration, and they used it being deluded by greed, hate and ignorance. They used it to get rid of all their enemies and caused innumerable sufferings in the world. Those who have powerful mind, they can do a lot of evil. Those who have powerful mind, they can also do a lot of good. Those who don't have powerful mind, they cannot do much good, but they also cannot do much evil. So the more powerful the concentration of the mind is, the more sensitive the mind becomes, and the more able to do all kinds of deeds. So this is very important to understand, because from the interview I have had, it seems many of you are quite confused about the meaning of learning concentration. If you want to learn concentration, it is very important to have motivation. Unless you have correct motivation, the concentration can become also a very big nuisance. The concentration is also explained in Buddhism as the base for wisdom. If there is no concentration, no deeper wisdom can be attained. The depths of wisdom is, in a way, directly linked to the depths of concentration. In the past, at present, and in the future, it will be always so that those people who have ability for deep concentration, they have also ability for the development of deeper wisdom. But depends, of course, how they use it. So the training in the concentration is in the middle of the Buddhist path. And it is connected with each and every aspect of the Buddhist path. When you are learning Buddhism and you know what you mean, you are learning the three learnings, the learning in morality, learning in concentration, and learning in wisdom. Now, the aim of the learning in wisdom is the realization of the supramundane wisdom. It is that supramundane wisdom which is capable of removing suffering. No other wisdom is really capable of removing suffering. That you should be very well aware. Usually people who know many things, they suffer more than people who don't know much. But the people who have developed correctly morality and concentration, they can develop the supramundane wisdom, which is, so to say, the only way for actually eradicating suffering. So this is the correct motivation in learning concentration. Unless one understands it, one will always be confused about what one is doing. Today, during the interview, someone has asked me, what can I do with jhana? When I have jhana, what to do with it? Can I use it for doing the things I do better? If this is the motivation in learning the dhyana, there will always be confusion. The practicing the dhyana is practicing the pure mind. And an understanding of the pure mind is the base for opening oneself to the horizons of wisdom. Without this opening, the meaning of wisdom will not appear simply to the mind. So in all traditions of Buddhism, which are genuine, this training in deep concentration is at the heart of the training. So it is explained very thoroughly. The stages of cognition which are connected with wholesome one-pointedness of the mind they are always connected with wholesomeness. According to the teachings of all schools of Abhidharma, the agitated mind or distracted mind is accompaniment of all states of unwholesome mind. While a concentrated mind is the accompaniment of all states of the wholesome mind. The direct cause for wholesome one-pointedness of the mind, which can also be called dhyana, is mindfulness. So the training in the different states of deep concentration implies training in mindfulness. And mindfulness is used to avoid the unwholesome states of mind and to cultivate the wholesome states of mind. So without mindfulness, no use for samadhi in the Buddhist sense. Unless one cultivates samadhi parallel to the cultivation of mindfulness, the cultivation of samadhi will not be of any use. It can, on the contrary, it can be of use to bring oneself to the darkest hell. Those who develop powerful concentration and know mindfulness, they were those who could do much evil in the world. So mindfulness is the condition for samadhi as the one-pointedness of a wholesome mind. Another condition for samadhi is effort. No one has learned samadhi without applying correct effort. Those who have succeeded in learning the dhyana, they have applied correct effort. Correct effort means not allowing the unwholesome states of mind to appear in the mind. If they have appeared, abandon them, and cultivate, use the effort to cultivate those wholesome states which have appeared. So the training in the dhyana and staying in the dhyana and practicing dhyana is the inseparably linked with the practice of mindfulness and right effort. If it is not, then that kind of dhyana without mindfulness and right effort can become completely useless and source of suffering instead of source of happiness. To explain this principle in the path of purification, Visuddhimagga, there is a very nice story. Story of three friends who want to pick some flowers to go to worship the chosen divinity. Let it be, in our case, the goddess of wisdom, the Saraswati. For our purpose, she being the company of Manjushri, she will be the most suitable for our example. So, especially in the tantric tradition, the Manjushri and the Saraswati, they always come together. So, those who have been in India, they know that the worship of Saraswati is one of the most important festivals in India. The statue made of clay is brought to the river and then sunk in the river. And thousands of people sing and do all kinds of cultural programs. Nowadays, mostly the religious festivals, also in Hinduism, also in Christianity, turn to be the drinking parties but this was not the case in the olden times. So these three friends, they want to pick some flowers to worship the goddess Saraswati. So they enter a park and see a beautiful champa tree. Champa has very nice white flowers, smelling wonderfully. Now the champa tree branches are very high. So one friend tries to reach for the flowers, but not being high enough, even with jumping, he cannot get any bunch of flowers they need. So another friend comes offering his help and bows his back so that the other friend can stand on the back and reach the flowers on the branch. But having raised himself on the back of the friend, he feels very unstable and starts swinging and is just about to fall down. Then another friend immediately jumps and supports him. So the three friends together then manage to pluck as many flowers as they need, and happily they go to worship the goddess Saraswati. So, who is the one who plucks the flowers? Samadhi. Who is the one who offers his back? The mindfulness. And who is the one who supports? The effort. Like this, the three friends manage to reach their aim. That means the worship of the goddess of wisdom. We are chanting every morning the Heart Sutra. The Sanskrit version precisely starts with Om Namo Bhagavatyai Arya Pragya Paramitayai. Om, salutations to the goddess of wisdom. So, if you want to understand the meaning of the Heart Sutra, it is not just the intellectual understanding. You need concentration, you need mindfulness, and you need right effort. Otherwise, you will never reach the goddess of transcendental wisdom. When the goddess of transcendental wisdom is reached, the mind will get peace, harmony, and see things very, very clearly. This especially happens due to the function of the wholesome one-pointedness of the mind. The samadhi as wholesome one-pointedness of the mind is compared to a light of a candle. Now is a good time to speak about the light of the candle, which is not moved by the gusts of the wind. That light of the candle, not moved by the gusts of the wind, will be able to illumine everything that is in the room. Similarly, the mind, the light of one-pointed concentration can illumine all the objects in our mind. Then the light of wisdom can appear. So the training in the wholesome one-pointedness of the mind is all-inclusive in the Buddhist training. It is inseparable with training in all the virtues. It is inseparable with training in, especially important for the bodhisattva, in training in capability of being of use to others. The bodhisattva in his innumerable lives, as our Jataka stories teach us, was precisely able to develop this ability of being of use to great many beings because of his practice of concentration. So he could develop wisdom surpassing the wisdom of all those who wanted to harm him. And he developed the wisdom to subdue all obstacles on his path to the attainment of his supreme goal. Without the practice of the concentration, he would never be able to surpass the obstacles he has surpassed. So now, since there is very little time left, so I will briefly end up the summary of the traditional training in whole one-pointed concentration of the wholesome mind before we come tomorrow to some of the aspects of the bodhisattva training. The training that we have so far dealt with is the common training for all who aspire for abandoning of suffering and for helping others also. Because the strengths of one's realization and the strengths of the ability to be of use to others, no matter whether one practices the path of the disciples or the path of the bodhisattva, will depend on the strength of one's concentration. So they are ordinary arahats who have attained the end of suffering very quickly. They are called Pakatu or Prakriti Arahat. Their ability of concentration and of practicing these different aspects of concentration, like 8 liberations, supernatural powers, and so on, they have not been developed. Then they are great arahats who have practiced the 8 liberations, supernatural powers. So they could be, their realization was much more powerful because their paramis, their perfections, were more powerful. And the perfection of dhyana, of meditation, of practicing the one-pointedness of wholesome mind, is directly linked to the perfection of the wisdom. But it is also linked to all the other perfections connected with accumulation of merit. Namely, with perfection of giving, perfection of morality, perfection of tolerance, and perfection of effort. These perfections leading to the accumulation of merit, connected with all advantages of happy and productive life, and usefulness for oneself and others. All these are also directly linked to the practice of concentration. As long as one has not practiced concentration, one will be confused about the real meaning of the perfection of giving, morality, tolerance, and effort. And the confused mind can do only small virtues, it can never do big virtues. So also, a confused mind can do only a small evil, not big evil. So, let us just summarize some important aspects of the general training in deep concentration common to all practicing the Buddha path. The disciples, the Buddhas for themselves, and the Buddhas who have practiced the bodhicittas. For the sake of attainment of the supreme enlightenment. So, we have so far explained the 4 dhyanas. These 4 dhyanas explain the training in the one-pointedness of wholesome mind at the sphere of subtle forms. In order to understand the Buddhist cosmology and in order to understand the mind, one should also practice the four one-pointednesses of wholesome mind in regard to formless sphere of perception. According to Buddhist cosmology, which is based on the experience of deep concentration, there are 3 spheres of the world, so 3 groups of beings. The state of existence is decided by the state of mind. This is very important to understand. Those beings whose minds are formed in such a way that their perception is dominated by 5 senses, they live in the sphere of the world called Kama Dhatu, Yi Jie. In the Kama Dhatu, in the sphere of perception, where mind is dominated by the 5 senses, the ability for wisdom, so the scriptures explain, is limited. So in that sphere of perception, only limited wisdom is practiced. Why? Because the 5 consciousnesses which are connected to the 5 bodily senses, they are, by their very nature, they are distracted consciousnesses. So when the mind relies on them, they always will mislead the mind into the unwholesome states of existence, greed, anger, and ignorance. So, in order to attain the more subtle kind of wisdom, the mind has to isolate itself from the power of the 5 senses. that mind will be able to attain greater wisdom. So the training that most of you have been undergoing now is a training for attaining the greater wisdom, connected with a pure mind contemplating subtle forms. This training in contemplation of the subtle forms is leading to the mastery of the fourth dhyana. And we have explained the fourth dhyana is a state of mind endowed with pure equanimity, pure impartiality. Because the hold of the mind on the pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings which distract the mind has been transcended. So this kind of mind is the mind of the fourth dhyana, as we have explained, is called, is similar to the state of liberated being, because it enables the experience of pure equanimity. In the time of Buddha, it was often mistaken for the state of liberation. So there were teachings of nirvana here and now, which the Buddha most vehemently opposed. The transcendence, however, of the pleasant and unpleasant feelings leads to the balance of concentration and wisdom. The wisdom is best applied to those objects which can still be distinguished. In the transcendental, in the subtle forms, there is still distinction of the forms. Yet there is no danger of mind being misled by pleasant and or unpleasant sensations. And also there not being a breath and not being applied and sustained thought, there appears a perfect condition for clear understanding. That condition of the mind is, in a way, the perfect condition of the mind. That's why the Buddha's path into parinirvana at the end of their lives in the fourth dhyana. The traditional training in concentration, however, does not stop here. Yet it is of crucial importance. It is of crucial importance also for the training in the supernatural powers. The supernatural powers are also mostly practiced with the mind in the fourth dhyana. And as we know, the supernatural powers based on the fourth dhyana is also what the Buddha used under the Bodhi tree to understand his previous lives and to understand the law of karma. So, the training in the fourth dhyana and stabilizing the fourth dhyana is of utmost importance. When the traditional training for stabilizing the fourth dhyana is a training in the kasinas, or kritsna ayatanas, Pian Chu. So usually those who have attained the fourth dhyana are taught the traditional training is in the kasinas, the spheres of totality. They allow great mastery of the deep concentration. They allow the mastery of attention, which is directly linked